I must say hello to everyone, and I must remind you to please press the subscribe button to show your appreciation. Thank you. Today, I have a special video about the world accusing Israel of genocide, occupiers, and apartheid. Debaters are Natasha Hausdorff, Yoseph Haddad, and Mosab Hassan Yousef.
Hamas has wounded us. They are responsible for all the destruction. All the destruction is on them. May God settle the score with Hamas, take revenge on Hamas. They destroyed our lives. These are the words of Palestinians in Gaza. Leaving Jabalia a couple of weeks ago, interviewed by Israeli journalist Ohad Chemo from Channel 12. These are the voices that Hamas and the members of the proposition don't want you to hear. These are the voices they want you to silence. We want you to rule, they say. We don't want Hamas. They took away the humanitarian aid. We will be killed if we say anything. The Jews bring us food. Give us humanitarian corridor. May God take revenge on those who uprooted and killed us. Hamas. All of the falsehoods we have heard from the proposition this evening, their support for terror, the strengthening, essentially, of the oppressors, not just Hamas, but Hezbollah, the Houthis, other Iranian proxies in Iraq and in Syria. They oppress Palestinians and Israelis alike. Now, this disgraceful motion and the pretty shameful manner in which it has been handled this evening discredits this once illustrious institution. And that Jewish students have also felt intimidated from attending tonight is an extremely sad state of affairs. But I think anyone watching this debate will probably understand why. This is a dark moment in the Oxford Union's history, and as a member of this institution and a committed attendee in my time at this university, I think it is a very sad day on that front too. Now, those who cannot argue their case flee like cowards, like Norman Finkelstein, who pulled out at the last moment and in fact now seems to be scheduled to speak tomorrow unopposed, or like Mohammed al-Kurd, who also, like a coward, left after his speech because he could not face the truth that you have heard from the opposition benches. This debate has been predicated on a slew of falsehoods and misinformation. And in answer to the lady's point from the floor, red lines have been crossed this evening. I don't just refer to support for terrorism and to law enforcement watching. I do highlight Section 12(1)(a) of the Terrorism Act 2000. Calling the 7th of October a heroic act is something that is and ought to be recognized as unlawful in this country. But we've also heard made-up facts, made-up allegations, made-up quotes. No, Ben-Gurion did not say that he wanted to expel the Arabs. He said that attackers would be removed. He called on the Arabs to join the Jews in building the state of Israel. And his quote was, "We do not want to expel the Arabs. We do not have to expel the Arabs." The Israeli Arab who was ejected from this chamber in a pretty shameful development and an exhibition of double standards, which unfortunately Israelis, both Jewish and Arab, have come to acknowledge and expect. He is proof of the 20% of Israel's population that are the only free Arabs in the Middle East, that live with full citizen rights, and that put the lie to everything that you have heard from the opposition this evening. I dream, in fact, of a day when people stop making up those falsehoods, those allegations, those lies, when people stop making up those quotes, because even Benny Morris acknowledged he was mistaken when he reported it. And a little bit of research, ladies and gentlemen, which is something this university is so good, I think, at instilling in its students, would have assisted the opposition substantially in this debate. We heard the essence, essentially, of the advice, the optimism from the opposition, from the proposition benches. The Israelis, what should they do? They should live in Palestine and under Palestinian rule. We saw the result of two reservists losing their way and finding themselves in Ramallah in the year 2000. When they went to a local police station for help, they were lynched. Their livers were eaten. And that image of one of their attackers holding up his bloodied hands to the window towards the baying crowd below, that image of the red hand has been a central part of the propaganda initiative, so that Hollywood members have been wearing red badges and celebrating the slaughter of Jews and urging it to continue. This is not a chicken and an egg scenario. This is not a situation, and we've heard so many examples from the proposition so far. Israel has done X, Y, Z, which have never been shown or been substantiated. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948 followed massacres of Jews. The Hebron massacre in 1929. In fact, Arabs have been massacring Jews in the Middle East for centuries. This is not a chicken and an egg scenario. But we have been asked for historical, and we've been asked specifically for historical context, and what I'm going to provide to you is something that hasn't come up, which is extraordinary in the context of a discussion of two legal terms, genocide, apartheid. The lack of historical context and the lack of legal context has been palpable. But I am here, so fear not, ladies and gentlemen. Apartheid. Apartheid and genocide. Well, like colonialism, ethnic cleansing, occupation, all of the other blood libels that we've heard from the proposition benches this evening, the insidious nature of these allegations is that they take the victims of a crime and they accuse those victims of committing the very crime that was imposed on them. Apartheid is a prime example. Where is there apartheid in this region, ladies and gentlemen? If we just look at the area from the river to the sea, the West Bank, Palestinian-controlled territory, and yes, the Palestinians have self-governance. They have an autonomy after the Oslo Accords established in areas A and B, where that self-governance has meant that part of the world is Jew-free. Judenrein. You've heard that word before somewhere. Jew-free also, as in Gaza, since Israel's withdrawal in 2005. Every Jew was ripped from their homes, even the dead ones were dug up so that they could not be desecrated when that territory was handed over to Palestinian self-governance. There is apartheid, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Herein is another perfect example of complete nonsense that seems to be opium for the masses. Gaza has a border with Egypt, and it is somewhere, unlike everyone who has spoken in this debate, I actually went to in September on the ground in Gaza and inspecting the tunnels that exist under the border between Gaza and the Egyptians. One of them was big enough to drive military-grade vehicles through. There was soot on the walls because of the vehicles that had come backwards and forwards, resupplying Hamas with Iranian military might right under Egyptian command tower. So I invite anyone who is taken in by this nonsense simply to look at a map. Apartheid, you have heard debunked by those that have grown up in Israel and experienced it, the opportunities that Israeli Arabs have. The lie is perpetrated by infantilizing the Palestinians and ignoring the self-governance that exists in Gaza, in the West Bank, And organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch lie about what the position is. They conflate Israeli Arabs, such as the gentleman who was ejected from this chamber. They conflate Israeli Arabs with those who have self-determination under the autonomy of the Palestinian Authority. But then we come to this obscene allegation of genocide. And yes, the term coined by the Jewish jurist Raphael Lemkin in the aftermath of the Holocaust to provide a legal terminology to the Jewish experience of being targeted because they were Jews for extermination. And when the proposition referred to the definition, they left out two very critical words, as such. This is to do with intentionally targeting a group as such, because of the group that they belong to. That was the Jewish experience in the Holocaust. It was also the experience of Jews on the 7th of October, when those acts that delusional third speaker referred to as heroic deliberately targeted Jews because they were Jews for rape, slaughter, torture, mutilation, and kidnap. If they cannot acknowledge that, they have much bigger problems than the ones that they profess to you this evening. Genocide is a slur being alleged against the real victims of genocide in this case, because it is providing a legal hook. A legal hook. I'm glad actually that there is an opportunity for someone to be heard that can speak about what the ICJ actually found so far in the genocide case. Because unlike the speakers who have been invited this term, including Husam Zumlot, who repeatedly lies about what was found by the International Court of Justice in their provisional measures order, and unfortunately he wasn't challenged when he was here as a guest earlier this term, the ICJ has not found that there is plausible genocide or a risk of plausible genocide or anything of the sort. And I honestly thought that after Joan Donoghue, the former president of the ICJ, went on Hard Talk on the BBC to correct this falsehood, it would stop being repeated, but clearly not in institutions like the Oxford Union. Genocide is simply the latest version of the blood libel that is being propagated against Jews because they are Jews. And it is a blood libel not because it is targeting Jews, but because it is false. It is the falsehoods that have been coming out of the proposition benches this evening that are nothing new, because unfortunately, the oldest hatred, the hatred of the Jews, goes hand in hand with lies about them. Then we have this notion of colonialism. When one considers who the indigenous people in that territory are, Jews, indigenous to Judea, the notion that Israel is a colonial entity is laughable. One only needs to look at the archaeology. One of the major focuses, though, of this allegation of genocide is the falsehoods that we've heard about the last 13 months of Israel's campaign against Hamas and other Palestinian terrorist groups in Gaza. And when I was there, I also witnessed the challenges that the IDF was dealing with. Civilian houses booby-trapped in order to try and kill as many IDF soldiers as possible as they sweep through these areas seeking to evacuate civilians and target the Hamas who embed themselves in them. The notion that even the use of human shields that Hamas is proud of was disputed this evening starts to reveal the ridiculous position that the proposition have adopted. But there are root causes here, very important root causes that actually go hand in hand with all of the falsehoods that we have heard. It is either being put to you from a position of ignorance, or there is something far more malicious behind the falsehoods that have been repeated, emphasized, embellished even over the course of this evening. Indoctrination is at the core of the perpetuation of this conflict. When Palestinian kids are taught from kindergarten up that the highest calling in life is to slaughter as many Jews as possible and become a martyr, peace is being pushed further and further away. What nonsense? 3/4 of the terrorists who crossed the border on the 7th of October were educated in UNRWA-run schools. It is a matter of public record what the Palestinian Authority approved curriculum teaches in these UNRWA-run schools. And in fact, when I was on Trigonometry, the podcast, only a few months ago, they had the great initiative of playing some of Palestinian children's TV programs as part of that interview. This is material that many people, especially in this country, have never been exposed to. I encourage you to view it, because it will tell you everything that you need to know about the bloodlust and the terrorism and the indoctrination that is going to push this conflict on for decades more unless it is grappled with and unless the international community's complicity in it is likewise grappled with. But it is not just the indoctrination, but also the incentivization to terror. Forgive me, I'm going to take the same amount of time as those on the opposition benches. That means I've got another 5 minutes. We have heard very little this evening about the Palestinian Authority Pay for Slay program, which encourages terrorism by rewarding terrorists according to how many Jews they have slaughtered, the severity of their sentence, their time in Israeli prisons. And this is directly linked to the 7th of October, because Ali Khadi and the others who spent 2 years organizing those attacks, there was nothing heroic about it, were paid salaries by the Palestinian Authority while they were organizing those barbarous medieval-style atrocities. The so-called moderates in this equation, really? They're also incentivizing the continuation of that genocidal war against the Jews. Now, one of the massive areas of misinformation this evening has been the issue of aid being provided by Israel into the Gaza Strip, being facilitated. I checked the COGAT website over the course of this debate. I had quite a lot of time on my hands, ladies and gentlemen. 1,149,932 tons of aid. That's 58,101 trucks. 1% of the international aid, the trucks that the international community has attempted to send into Gaza, Israel has stopped for security reasons. And the calorie count is significant because over 3,000 calories a day have been going into the Gaza Strip per individual there. Why? Why do we not hear criticism calling out of the causes of Palestinian suffering? The quotes that I read out to you at the very beginning of my speech were against Hamas. But it's not just Hamas that has contributed to this. Where is the condemnation of Egypt? Where are the calls for Egypt to comply with its international law obligations? Those that it signed up to in the African Union Convention on Refugees, that it acceded to in 1980, to open the border and allow the passage of civilians fleeing civil disorder in Gaza. Those are its international law obligations. I haven't heard anything from the proposition on that this evening, which is why I agree with the rest of my speakers. They don't care about the Palestinians. Their focus is on the eradication of the state of Israel, and they are peddling in blood libels to seek to achieve it. We had the speaker who left the debate, I mean, in and of itself, a rather shameful disregard for the tradition of the Oxford Union, referenced, in fact, his own case of Sheikh Jarrah, a property that was purchased in 1875 by 2 rabbis and put into family trust, that was then seized by Jordan when it ethnically cleansed the Jews of East Jerusalem and occupied that territory in 1948. That property that Mohammed al-Kurd was referring to came into the hands of the Jordanian custodian of enemy property. And instead of transferring the ownership of that property, which would have later even been respected, albeit being unlawful, forgive me, but the other speakers had quite a deal longer. I've been keeping time, 20 minutes on the last count. So that Jordanian custodian of enemy property issued a couple of leases over it. Now, leases require rent and they require compliance with the conditions. Neither of those have been forthcoming from the first speaker from the opposition and his cohabitants, illegal squatters who have been given time after time, in fact 50 years of litigation by the courts in Israel, an opportunity to get their house in order. But of course, they have no regard to the law. They have no regard to the facts. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have seen on display this evening is a continuation and a perpetuation of the falsehoods against Israel in order to draw you into those falsehoods. There have been references to useful idiots this evening in response to some of the comments from the floor. I do not believe that you are useful idiots. You would not be at this institution if you were. So,
would the secretary give the speaker 1 more minute the same way?
Well, I was going to go to the end of the time of the previous speaker because I stick to rules and precedent. Let us not be under any illusions here. We all know what this audience is, where your allegiances lie. You've made that very plain this evening. We all know what the outcome of this vote is going to be. That is not important. What is important is that ultimately the truth will out. What is important is that all of those Jewish students who are too intimidated to come tonight will have an opportunity to come not only to hear the truth in future, but in future to speak the truth. And that will be occasioned because brave members of the opposition benches this evening have called out the falsehoods, have called out the lies in the face of opposition, even from the union authorities in organizing this debate. The shame of this evening, I hope, will be overcome because in future years, there will be debates where the rules, procedure, and decorum are respected, and there will be debates when it is not just the speakers here on the opposition that are calling out these falsehoods and that are seeking a peace and a future built on real history, real law, real facts. Thank you.
But what so-called Palestinians and the Palestinian revolution, it's a revolution without a compass. It's going to nowhere, and nothing can satisfy their ambition. And it has never been a fight over land. It's a religious fight that started some 1400 years ago. It's motivated by great hatred against the Jewish people. They don't want to accept the Jewish people to exist in that land, and the entire world is in denial in this fact. We say that this is the root cause problem, that the Muslims don't want the Jewish people to return to their homeland. The Jewish people are the indigenous of that land, with overwhelming evidence, as I told you in the past. The Muslims don't have any evidence that support actually their connection to that land. They are invaders, and the Palestinians invaded the land. They are not an ethnic group. Then now they have been trying so hard to delegitimize the Jewish people. And what I say to the Palestinians, first of all, you need to prove your legitimacy before you try to delegitimize the indigenous people of the land. Once you succeed of showing us who you are, then we may talk to you about a state. But to claim that you have the land, even though the indigenous of the land, the Jewish people, actually have been willing to share the land, and they were willing back in 1948 to share the land with the Arabs, but the Arabs refused. They had equal opportunity, just like the Jewish people, to declare their independence. But instead of declaring their independence back in 1948, they declared war against the Jewish people, only because they are Jewish people. Then 40 years later, in 1988, they declared their independence. So, once what so-called Palestinians drop their violent approach to the problem and accept Israel's right to exist in that region, then we can talk about things. But to really water it down and say that this is a conspiracy, people like Cenk, they are living in a conspiracy theory, alternative reality. We tell them that this war, that Sinwar started in Gaza, is a very dirty war. He weaponized civilians. only to get sympathy of people like Cenk and many others around the globe. This is the most destructive weapon in the hands of Hamas, and millions around the world fell into this trap. So as long as we empower Hamas, more children are going to die. And if we don't remove Hamas from power, if we don't remove the Ayatollah from power, then this endless and vicious cycle of violence will continue for eternity. It's as simple as that. But of course, in the meantime, we are aware of the suffering of the children. The children of Gaza were born Arab. They weren't born innocent. They were not born Palestinians. Then they had been indoctrinated to hate. They have been indoctrinated to blame Israel. As Cenk right now, he has been blaming Israel since the beginning of the war, but now he sees the defeat of Hamas. So now he's changing his tone a little bit, his attitude. And I like his cleverity. He's a very clever Palestinian. He's the perfect example of a Palestinian, by the way. Cenk, just right there. Because Palestinian is not limited to Gaza. Palestinian is a syndrome. It's a mental illness. It's a universal phenomenon. And Cenk is the perfect example. And if he gets hungry eventually, I will not be surprised that he will eat his own children.
Of that land are the people that were brought in from Europe and other places. Look, the Jewish people have suffered great. Israelis. I mean, look, I know if you're an Israeli supporter, some of you have lost your mind so much that you believe that the Muslims there that have been living there for centuries, millennium, are somehow in your way and they should just be dispensed with, and that the real true heirs of that land are the people that were brought in from Europe and other places. Look, the Jewish people have suffered greatly throughout history, and anyone who denies that is denying reality. But now it breaks my heart to see that they have become what they most despise. They escaped that kind of brutality only to do it to the Palestinians now. So if you notice, Mossad over there never answered the question. There is no standard that the Palestinians can ever meet. They even say absurd things like they don't exist, that this Palestinian state should never exist, Palestinians as an ethnicity should never exist. And then they have the temerity to say, can you believe that they theoretically don't think that Israel should have a right to exist, even though it's existed since 1948. It's one of the biggest militaries in the world, backed by the greatest military power in the history of the world. It has nuclear weapons. Your existence is rock solid. You're murdering Palestinian children.
Hang on, Cenk.
Wake up.
Let me jump in there.
Wake up.
Cenk, that doesn't change
So you didn't
the
jump
fact.
in as the lunatic was saying things
on.
about, go ahead.
Cenk, that doesn't change the premise of the argument that Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Iranian regime, none of them accept the existence of an Israeli state. And they are all wedded.
Oh, Piers,
Well, hang on,
okay,
let me
I'm so
finish.
glad you're
Let
bringing
me
this
finish
up.
my question.
Okay,
and
go
they're all wedded to its destruction. That's the point. It's not a question of whether it does exist.
No.
It's that all those groups want to eradicate it. They're open about it.
Okay, Piers, let's look at your frame, okay? So in the reality-based world, Palestine does not exist because Israel is blocking its existence. Its cabinet voted to say that a Palestinian state will never exist. They will never allow it. So you're not worried that in the real world, the Palestinians are not allowed to exist, and if they resist at all, their brutal 57-year humiliating occupation, they're called terrorists. They're the worst people on earth. We should hate them all, and they should never be allowed to exist. That's the real world. Israel exists and is one of the largest militaries in the world.
Yeah, but you're missing my point again, deliberately. I think you're deliberately missing my point.
Hold on. Okay, Piers, let me finish. Now, meanwhile, you live in a theoretical world where you say these powerless people who have no ability to affect Israel's existence at all, the Palestinians are literally throwing stones. They bomb back to the Stone Age. They have no power at all.
Hezbollah's been firing
You're
rockets.
saying, hold on. If you ask me a question, let me answer the goddamn
wrong
question.
statements.
Okay, you're being a ridiculous, unfair, ridiculous person.
I'm picking you up
go
on.
and join the Mossad over here with him.
I'm picking you up. His name is Mosab, by the way, with a B. But the
Mossad, right? That's who he works for, and that's who he's
his name is Mosab. and he works.
Oh, he's Mosab that works for Mossad. Okay, got it.
And the reason we haven't got him on screen at the moment, we've got a technical problem with him, which we're trying to fix. So you and I will keep talking. I think that you're deliberately, I think you're deliberately avoiding the point I'm making, which is
No, I'm getting to the point you're making. If you stop cutting me off.
okay, but you're making
So
misleading
do I
statements.
think
You're
that
saying
Iran
that
and-
you're saying these people are throwing rocks at Israel. They're doing a lot more than throwing rocks. Hezbollah's been firing
they're
rocket
throwing
after
bombs that are
rocket
not
after
landing at
rocket
all.
after rocket. Hamas has been launching terror attacks. The Houthis have been firing rockets. The Iranians are funding it all. It's not just rock throwing, Cenk, is it?
Preventing their state and then claiming that their right to existence is somehow in jeopardy, but the Palestinians isn't. So for God's sake, what can the Palestinians do for these Israelis to free them, to give them their state and to stop
Well, let me bring. We've got
occupying them?
Mossad back.
Israelis, I'm begging you to stop being so brutal, stop being the thing that you hated, stop being the thing that oppressed you in the first place. These Palestinians are not Nazis. You're fighting a ghost. No, the people who are being the fascists here, I hate to do this because it's breaking my heart and it should break your heart. You're being the fascists. You're the ones slaughtering their civilians. Look, how do you look at those children being starved to death in northern Gaza and not see Jewish children in Germany in the 1930s and 40s? How do you not see that? It's the same exact image. Snap out of it.
Oh, but Cenk,
Stop being the
Cenk,
thing that you hated.
All right, Cenk, how do you not see, conversely, that what happened on October the 7th was to Jewish people not dissimilar to what the Nazis did to them in World War II? How do you not see that
No,
parallel?
it is not similar at all.
It is.
At all, Piers.
It is.
Piers, no,
It's a group
Piers,
wedded to the
no,
destruction
Piers,
of all
it's
Jewish.
insanity.
Let me finish
Stop
my
saying
question.
the same things.
It is a group wedded, in the case of the Nazis, to the eradication of all Jewish people, as indeed are Hamas. What's the difference?
Okay, this is a convenient talking point to justify.
What's the difference?
Actually preventing the Palestinians from
Tell me
existing.
the moral difference.
What is wrong with you people?
Tell me the moral
in
difference.
reality, yes, of course I'll tell you the difference. So what they did on October 7th was terrible. I hate any civilians being killed. I hate terrorism. That is why Netanyahu is an awful, disgusting terrorist. He's killed 30 to 40 times the number of civilians that Sinwar did. What an awful, despicable terrorist he is. Happening in the world, which is the Israelis wiping out the Palestinians, slaughtering them tens of thousands
All right, let
at
me
a
bring in
time,
Mossad.
taking their land.
All right.
You're not the savior. You always need a victim in order to pose as the savior. You're not the savior. First, learn how to control yourself. Learn how to control your tongue buds before you try to control the world. It's a big situation in Gaza. All of us are heartbroken for the death of the children of Gaza. All of us. That includes Israel. Israel considers what's happening in Gaza a tragedy. It's a tragedy made up by the terrorists that you sympathize with, that you want to validate and legitimize. Then we will have to deal with the chaos that you create, your emotional being, going all over the place. Who authorized you to speak on the behalf of the Gaza? Nobody did.
You did.
You self-proclaimed,
You did.
just like Mahmoud Abbas, just like Yasser Arafat, just like all the Palestinians who have been feeding on the pain of the Palestinian children. You are a parasite, a bottom feeder. This is what you are. So before you speak against the Prime Minister of a democracy and accuse him of being a terrorist, you need to look at yourself in the mirror. You have been supporting Hamas and it's recorded against you for eternity. So don't play the game now that your fight is for the children in Gaza. This is not your fight. You know who's fighting for the children of Gaza? The IDF. That is killing Hamas. That is uprooting Hamas so the children of Gaza can have their freedom after 36 years of slavery. Those are the ones who qualify to speak on the topic, not you sitting in your comfort and you want to have an opinion about it.
All right,
This
let
is
me
the
ask
problem
Cenk.
that we have dealing with scumbags like this.
All right, let me.
One is a two-state solution. So if they get to a ceasefire and we get on the road to peace, I would be ecstatic. And I want a safe haven for Jews in Israel. I want Palestine to be a country and to have sovereignty that Israel has denied them for 6 brutal decades in their colonization and their oppression of those poor people. Stop defending the slaughter, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, and the occupation of innocent human beings.
All right, Ben, your
Here's the
response.
problem. Here's the problem. Two things here. Number one, for you to get a two-state solution, then you'd have to actually say that the terrorists need to die, number one. And number two, the terrorists would have to
They're all
actually
dead
stop
already.
shooting, let me finish, from the river to the sea. The idea that you have a sane group of people sitting down with the Jews who they
Netanyahu
raped
says that.
and killed
Literally,
and murdered.
Netanyahu says
Let me
that.
finish. I understand you support the terrorists. I'm okay with that. I understand your point.
No,
You're
you
standing with
support
Hamas
the
and
terrorists.
Hezbollah.
You're
I
a
understand that.
terrorist-loving
I get this.
supporter of the
This is
IDF.
the difference in this election. See, I understand your point, but this is the difference in this election. I stand with the people that were attacked in Israel by terrorists who butchered and beheaded and took hostages. You stand with the terrorists that killed innocent babies and stabbed them in their cribs. We are not the same
No.
here. We are different here.
You're an
My
absolute
side doesn't
liar.
chant death to America.
Liar.
Your side
I don't
chants
stand with
death
Hamas.
to Israel
I hate
and
it
death
when
to
Hamas
America.
kill those
There's
civilians.
a difference here.
But you don't
There's a
mind at
difference.
all. You
I
don't
don't
mind at
chant
all
from the
that
river to
Israel
the
killed
sea.
40
You chant
times the number
from
of
the
civilians.
river to the
40
sea.
times the number of babies.
Again,
all those
again,
dead Palestinian
who killed
babies, and you love it
on
because you
our
support
October
the
What
terrorist
does a
state of
two-state
Israel.
solution look
attack?
like if it's governed by
Who
Hamas?
Here's the problem. Two things here. Number one, for you to get a two-state solution, then you'd have to actually say that the terrorists need to die, number one. And number two, the terrorists would have to
They're all
actually
dead
stop
already.
chanting, let me finish, from the river to the sea. The idea that you have a sane group of people sitting down with the Jews who they
Netanyahu
raped
says that.
and killed
Literally,
and murdered.
Netanyahu says
Let me
that.
finish. I understand you support the terrorists. I'm okay with that. I understand your point.
No,
You're
you
standing with
support
Hamas
the
and
terrorists.
Hezbollah.
You're
I
a
understand that.
terrorist-loving
I get this.
supporter of the
This is
IDF.
the difference in this election. See, I understand your point, but this is the difference in this election. I stand with the people that were attacked in Israel by terrorists who butchered and beheaded and took hostages. You stand with the terrorists that killed innocent babies and stabbed them in their cribs. We are not the same
No.
here. We are different here.
You're an
My
absolute
side doesn't
liar.
chant death to America.
Liar.
Your side
I don't
chants
stand with
death
Hamas.
to Israel
I hate
and
it
death
when
to
Hamas
America.
killed those
There's
civilians.
a difference here.
But you don't
There's a
mind at
difference.
all. You
I
don't mind
chant
at all
from the
that
river to
Israel
the
killed
sea.
40
You chant
times the number
from
of
the
civilians.
river to the
40
sea.
times the number of babies.
Again,
all those
again,
dead Palestinian
who killed
babies, and you love it
on
because you
our
support
Cenk,
the
October
what
terrorist
does a
state of
two-state
Israel.
solution look
attacked?
like if it's governed by
Who
Hamas?
attacked?
Because that's what happened.
Who
There
attacked
was
on
a
October
two-state
7th?
solution. There was peace.
Look, what Hamas did on October 7 was barbaric, was a genocide motivated by sick religion. They attempted to ethnically cleanse a race, a human race. And this is a capital crime that cannot be forgiven. The situation to legitimize such a movement, give them legitimacy, and after that, in fact, to sit down on the negotiating table, then reward them with a state and political gain and financial gain. This is exactly what they wanted. Hamas, on October 7 in the morning, they killed Jewish children for revenge. In the afternoon, they killed Arab children, their own children. And by the way, this is a Palestinian practice to sacrifice their own children for political and financial gain. This is the essence of their game. And I am a living example. If you look at me, when my father had to choose between his Hamas Palestinian ideology and his own son, he chose the non-existential. He chose Allah over his son. And this is a living example to show you how these people function. They are willing to sacrifice not only 40,000 Gazans, they are willing to sacrifice an entire region religiously for something that does not exist. So with that said, Israel has no choice. It's not only about the children and the civilians of Gaza. It's about also the future of an entire generation in the Middle East. And I don't think there is a way around eradicating Hamas and removing them from power. We may suffer right now, and the Gazans may suffer, but the future will be bright without, at least brighter without Hamas.
Yeah, I mean, he did this ode to children, and I agree. 34 kids were killed on October 7th. That's heartbreaking. 15,000 Palestinian children have been killed.
They killed every child they found on October 7th. If they found 10,000 children, they would have killed 10,000 children.
Okay.
It is not about head count.
Okay, so I'm not excusing a single child that Hamas killed, but it seems like you're saying, 15,000 Palestinian kids. So what? Israel had to do it. We have to eradicate Hamas.
Don't put words in my mouth. Don't put words in my mouth. And don't think that you hold the higher moral ground.
I do.
Those are my children. Those are my brothers and my sisters. And you are not. Don't pose as the one you care more. You don't care more than I do for the Palestinian children or for the Arab children.
All right.
The reason why are they suffering? This is the most important thing.
And
You don't mind if
Cenk,
Israel just murdered
one moment,
15,000
Cenk. Cenk, I'm going to pull moderator prerogative moment. Let's just take a breath and take it down 10 degrees. I understand you're both riled because you both care about this.
Okay. So there is no need to take the higher moral ground. You know, here I speak on behalf of the Arab and the Jewish
Mosab,
children.
you've made your point.
They are
You've made your
very
point. You've made your
important to
point
me.
effectively and passionately.
I'm not being
You
selective,
just did.
and I don't need him to put words in my mouth.
15,000 children at a minimum are dead, and you're saying keep going.
Why? Why are they dead?
You're saying keep going.
Why are they dead?
So more children, thousands
Why
more
the
children.
children of Gaza are dead?
No,
Answer the question.
So it's not because the Israeli bombs, right? Israel made, the Hamas made the Israelis kill the Palestinian children. It's always the Palestinians' fault. Always, right? You said the Palestinians don't even exist. And you say that you were looking out for them. You were an Israeli spy, right?
I said Palestine does not exist. I did not say Arabs don't exist.
Okay, but you're claiming that you care about the Palestinians, but you were an Israeli spy. And you said your father sold you out. Didn't you sell out your dad? I'm not saying you shouldn't have. I get why you did it, but you sold him out. He didn't sell you out. You were the traitor.
So basically, right now, you're just going on a personal attack. Let me ask you this question.
No, because I'm addressing what you said.
I want to answer you.
Okay.
If you had information about a suicide bomber that is about to kill people indiscriminately, would you report them to the authorities?
I didn't blame you for what you did. I said
Answer the question, yes or no. Would you report it?
Of course I would report a terrorist attack.
Would that make you a traitor?
Well, it depends on the situation. But when you
All right.
said that your dad sold you out, that's just not true.
I'm going to step in again because it has gotten personal.
Here's the problem. Two things here. Number one, for you to get a two-state solution, then you'd have to actually say that the terrorists need to die, number one. And number two, the terrorists would have to actually stop shooting, let me finish, from the river to the sea. The idea that you have a sane group of people sitting down with the Jews who they
Netanyahu says that.
and killed
Literally,
and
Netanyahu says
Let me finish. Well, I understand you support the terrorists. I'm okay with that. I understand your point.
No,
You're
you
standing with
support
Hamas
the
and
terrorists.
Hezbollah.
You're
I
a
understand that.
terrorist-loving
I get this.
supporter of the
This
idea.
is the difference in this election. I understand your point, but this is the difference in this election. I stand with the people that were attacked in Israel by terrorists who butchered and beheaded and took hostages. You stand with the terrorists that killed innocent babies and stabbed them in their cribs. We are not the same here. We are different here.
You're an absolute
my side doesn't
liar.
Chant death to America.
Liar.
Your side
I don't
chants
stand with
death
Hamas.
to Israel
I hate
and
it
death
when
to
Hamas
America.
killed those
There's
civilians.
a difference here.
But you don't
There's a
mind at
difference.
all. You
I
don't mind
chant
at all
from the
that
river
Israel
to the
killed
sea.
40
You chant
times the number
from
of
the
civilians.
river to the
40
sea.
times the number of babies.
Again,
all those
again,
dead Palestinian
who killed
babies, and you love it
on
because you
a
support the
October
terrorist
7th?
state of
two-state
Israel.
solution look
attacked?
like if it's governed by
Who
Hamas?
attacked?
Because that's what happened.
Who attacked
there
on
was a
October
two-state
7th?
solution. There was peace.
You don't.
I do.
You're not the savior. You always need a victim in order to pose as the savior. You're not the savior. First, learn how to control yourself. Learn how to control your tongue buds before you try to control the world. It's a big situation in Gaza. All of us are heartbroken for the death of the children of Gaza. All of us. That includes Israel. Israel considers what's happening in Gaza a tragedy. It's a tragedy made up by the terrorists that you sympathize with, that you want to validate and legitimize, then we will have to deal with the chaos that you create, your emotional being, going all over the place. Who authorized you to speak on the behalf of the Gaza? Nobody did.
You did.
You self-proclaimed,
You did.
just like Mahmoud Abbas, just like Yasser Arafat, just like all the Palestinians who have been feeding on the pain of the Palestinian children. You are a parasite, a bottom feeder. This is what you are. So before you speak against the Prime Minister of a democracy and accuse him of being a terrorist, you need to look at yourself in the mirror. You have been supporting Hamas and it's recorded against you for eternity. So don't play the game now that your fight is for the children in Gaza. This is not your fight. You know who's fighting for the children of Gaza? The IDF. That is killing Hamas. That is uprooting Hamas so the children of Gaza can have their freedom after 36 years of slavery. Those are the ones who qualify to speak on the topic, not you sitting in your comfort and
Cenk,
you want to have an opinion about it.
All right,
This
let
is
me
the
ask Cenk.
problem that we have dealing with scumbags like this.
All right, let me.
Oh, we're having fun already, I see. Well, first of all, I'm glad that you brought, Mr. President, the uploading to the social media, because get this. Listen to this.
أنا قاعد أكلمك من جوا بصير افتح الواتس تبع أبو لوام شوف كيف القتلى شوف كيف قتلت فيديو يابا ابنك قتل يهود هاي دخل مفلسين يابا يابا قاعد أكلمك من جوال يهودية قتلتها وقتلت جوزها 10 فيديو قتلت 10 يابا 10 فيديو قتلت
I understand, I'll translate, don't worry. It's for the majority of Arab speakers here. Okay, this is a Palestinian, not affiliated with Hamas, according to what he says, just a citizen. And he's saying, Dad, Allahu Akbar, I just killed 10 Jews. I have their blood on my hand. I stole her phone. I'm speaking with you from her phone. This is a Palestinian, which you will call a civilian if the IDF eliminates. So this is one of the many videos that Hamas uploaded, and they themselves were proud of killing, guess what, Arabs and Jews in the 7th of October. And just before I start actually my speech, you know, it's funny, Mr. President, you as an Egyptian talking about the land of Palestine and stalling. You know, back in 1948, when the Arabs did not agree to the partition plan and the Jews did, and they opened the war and they lost the war. They lost the war, but you know what? They kept the West Bank and they kept Gaza. Do you know who actually ruled Gaza between 48 to 67 and who ruled the West Bank between 48 to 67? No, not Israel. It was Egypt in Gaza, and it was Jordan illegally in the West Bank. Now, here's a question, rhetorical one, because I really don't care about your answer. From 48 to 67, you as an Egyptian, you should know that Egypt controlled Gaza, yet they never offered a state to the Palestinians to take, which right now they are actually fighting for. They're also fighting for the West Bank. They're fighting for borders of 67. That's at least what the Palestinian Authority wants. Not like Muhammad al-Kurd and all the constituent speakers who wants the annihilation of Israel from the river to the sea, right? But here's the thing, how much I bet with you that you have no clue which river and which sea, but you are like zombies. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Listen carefully. If you want to free Palestine, first free Palestine from Hamas. First free Palestine from the terrorists. So, of course, Booz, here's the thing. If I say free Palestine from Hamas and you actually booing, then guys, I'm sorry to tell you, you are a terror supporters. Point. That is the point. Now, when I'll give you, I promise you, I'll give you. I'll tell you what, I thought by giving point of information, it means that the speaker is brave and he's not afraid to speak. Apparently, the president here is such a coward that he couldn't even take one point of view. But don't worry, I will allow you. Nico, stop the pe. 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 In Arabic we say sidniat, in Hebrew says stop the pe. It's really fast. Now, for her.
This is the second time that this speaker has been booed, which is important.
I'm fully aware of the forms of the House, and I will do my best to make sure that the speakers are in silence. Thank you.
To be honest with you, I'm not surprised, and in fact, when everybody say, I hope...
Another point what has been raised, I have to take it.
Just for the sake of having the debate, could the speakers on the opposition please avoid the hostility towards members of the House, just for the sake of continuing this debate?
The point of what has been. Thank you very much. Please continue.
All right, so basically, what we're talking about... Yeah.
I think members of the opposition will afford the same courtesy to members of the House as they receive.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, just to make a one very obvious statement, you know, everybody is saying the House should vote. I hope the House would vote, as if we already don't know what the House is going to vote tonight. But you know why I'm here? I'm here, one, just to show you that we are not afraid to confront all those anti-Israeli lawyers who twist the facts and lie time after time. And what's so crazy is that the majority of you have never been in the land of Israel, have never lived in the land of Israel, and then you have the audacity to come to speak to an Arab who was born in Haifa, the largest mixed city in Israel, raised in Nazareth, one of the largest Arab city in Israel, and then you got the audacity to tell me if I live under apartheid regime. Shame on you. You have no clue what you're talking about. So allow me, in order for me to actually explain what's going on, thank you. Let's go back to my childhood. I'm an Arab Israeli born in Haifa, largest mixed city in Israel, where you have Christians, Muslims, Druze, and Jews living in the city. At age 3, I moved to Nazareth with my parents, which is the largest Arab city in Israel back then. Today it's Rahat. And the way I grew up because, you know, being with Jews and Arabs together, playing football together. That's what we like. And because we were playing football in the largest mixed city in Haifa, we had Jews, Christians, Muslims, and Druze playing together. And do you think at the age of 11, 12, we cared that this guy is a Jew or this guy is an Arab? We just wanted to play football together. And that's what we did. And step by step, we start going out together, drinking, even inviting each other to holidays. Yes, for instance, Christmas, then the Christian friends would invite the Jews and the Muslims and the Druze to see the holidays of Christmas, for instance. Whether it was Eid al-Adha, then the Muslims or the Druze would invite the Jews, and the Christians and the Jews would invite them to see each other and how is those holidays going together. And yes, when it was Passover, then the Jews would invite the Christians and the Muslims and the Druze to see the holidays. This is how we bridge gaps. Additionally, we wanted to learn Hebrew and we wanted to learn Arabic because language, you bridge gaps. This is how I grew up. And when I arrived to the age of 16, I asked myself a very simple question because I saw that my Druze men friend and the Jewish friends are starting their enlistment to the IDF. Now, I asked the question, why am I not serving in the IDF? Apparently, some people do not realize that Arab Christians and Arab Muslims are not obligated to serve in the IDF, but if you want, you can volunteer. I decided to volunteer and serve in the IDF. Many people ask me, why did you choose to take that decision and actually serve in the IDF? I said, guys, it's in the initials. It's the IDF, it's not the JDF. And IDF means Israeli Defense Forces are not Jewish Defense Forces. And when Hamas and Hezbollah and the Iranian regime attack Israel, they attack all the citizens of Israel. And when the IDF protects Israel, the IDF protects all the citizens of Israel, whether you want it or not. This is how I looked at it, and this is how exactly it was. And then when I arrived at the age of 18, just a month and a half before the beginning of my service, a person came to me and said, Yousef, are you absolutely sure that this is the way and the path that you want to take? And I said 100% yes. That was about, thank you very much. I'm very proud of that shame. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm really, really proud of that shame. Now, and I said, yes, I'm 100% sure that this is the way that I want to take. All this was right up until the 4th of October, 2003. On the 4th of October 2003, which is a month and a half before my beginning of the service, a Palestinian female suicide bomber entered the Maxim restaurant in Haifa and blew up that restaurant. It's a restaurant co-owned by Arabs and Jews. People from Arabs and Jews are eating there, working there. The devastating result of that terror attack, 21 Israelis were murdered, Arabs and Jews. Over 50 were injured, Arabs and Jews. Arabs and Jews were killed because of that Palestinian terrorist. From that moment, I realized one thing. My decision wasn't 100%. It became 1,000,000%. And I knew that serving in the IDF is not only the right thing, but it's the most moral thing to protect my society. And when I say my society, I'm not talking about the Jewish society. I'm talking about the Israeli society, where you have Jews and Arabs together, and you can shout shame as much as you want. As I told you, I am so proud in every decision that I took to protect my country, to protect my society, and to protect my people from terrorist organizations like Hamas, who time after time kill Arabs and Jews. Now, after a year, I become a commander. I, as an Arab, was a commander over Jewish soldiers in the IDF. Take that, apartheid. You're talking about apartheid. I gave orders to Jewish soldiers to do exactly what an Arab IDF soldiers said to do. And then, as I said, you keep shouting shame. I'm proud of that, proud of that, proud of that, proud of that. I do want the time when they shout shame. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to actually give you a point. One time I was in a lecture, and I gave exactly this point where I said, I'm an Arab. I commanded over Jewish soldiers in the IDF. And then some anti-Israeli zombie get up and says, Yousef, you are an absolute sucker. You know why? And I said, why? Because once there is no use of you, you are an Arab. The Jews will kick you and throw you to the garbage. That's what has been told to me in front of 500 students. When there is no use of you, the Jews will throw you. Everybody started cheering there from the anti-Israelis, clapping and like having fun. And I say, this is really interesting. Because you know what? I have a story where there was no use of me. And in fact, not only there was no use of me, but saving me is putting Jewish lives in danger. Now, according to this anti-Israeli, this is the perfect time. I do need to finish this story. They interrupted me too many times. Now, as I said, this person who said to me that Jews will throw you in the garbage, then based on his idea, this is exactly the best time to do it. Throw me to the garbage. But instead of that, 4 soldiers put me on a stretcher. Yes, because I participated in the Second Lebanon War. Fight Hezbollah, the terrorist organization, and I was injured 4 days before ceasefire. At that time, when I was injured badly, and knowing that Hezbollah is going to target the rescue mission, the Jewish soldiers there, they should have thrown me to the garbage, according to him. But instead of that, they put me on a stretcher, lifted it up, backed up with another 4 Jewish soldiers, run 3 kilometers under fire when an RPG goes above your head, and literally bringing me to safety, saving my life. They didn't have to do that according to any thesis that you think about. Everybody talking about the relationship between the Arabs and Jews, and let me tell you why I'm so positive, so strong voice about that. Because while you bullshitting about what's going on, I felt it. I smelled it. I tasted it. I saw it. I heard it. It happened to me. You want to lie? Keep lying. But the simple fact is, when you arrive and speak about the apartheid myth, you need to understand that when you talk about apartheid, you either bring facts or you be quiet. Because according to Amnesty International, Israel is making an apartheid regime from the river to the sea, including the 2 million Arab Israelis, which is a blended lie from the river to the sea. Because here, this is me, winning actually an honorary doctorate from the University of Ariel. When you talk about academics, this is Salim Jubran, an Arab judge who sent to prison a Jewish prime minister and a Jewish president for committing crimes. Both of them were Jews. An Arab judge sent to prison a Jewish prime minister and a Jewish president to jail. You see this MK? This MK is the most anti-Israeli member of Knesset in Israel. Yet this MK earns $10,000 from the taxpayer. Most of them comes from a Jew, and he has the right to talk about Israel as much as he wants. If he lived in apartheid, he would be in jail right now. And how about Samir Hajjahya? You know what's so amazing? There's a stereotype. They say the Jews control the money. Jews control the money. Well, guess what? Samir Hajjahya is an Arab Muslim from the city of Taipei. You know what's so amazing about Samir Hajjahya? Should I say Dr. Samir Hajjahya? He was the head of the largest bank in Israel. An Arab Muslim is the head of the largest bank in Israel in a stereotype where you see that the Jews control the money. And how about this guy? I'll finish. I'll finish. I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish.
Not a point of information. I have to see it. But I had a point of order.
And let's take the microphone a little bit. Thank you for that. And I'll try to be less intensive, but you obviously understand how it is important when I stand in front of you, knowing my reality, and when there are a bunch of people that never been in Israel and telling me my reality, of course I would be a little bit with over motivation and talking like this. Let's continue about the Israeli apartheid. Look at this. This is Anan Khalaili. He's an Arab Muslim playing for the Israeli football team. Not only that, when he played for the under-19 Israeli soccer team, he finished as the top scorer, where Israel achieved an unbelievable achievement, finishing third in football. This is crazy, I'm telling you. Now, before I finish, here's what you will not going to hear. What you're not going to hear from our nice gentlemen and opponents here, you will not hear them talking about this person. I'm not even sure that they know who is this person. Do you have any idea, Mr. President? Anybody? Anybody has idea who is this? Of course not. You know, this is Islam Hijazi. She was killed with more than 90 bullets by Hamas because she wouldn't give them aid. She was responsible for giving aid. And when Hamas, the terrorists, came to take this aid and she refused, they shot her. You know what's so crazy? They did not deny it. Whoever calling me liar, Hamas did not deny it, you useful idiots. Well, you know, but here's the story. You will never ever talk about it. But here is my last point about the apartheid, about the relationship of the Arabs and the Jews. Does anybody of you even know who they are? Yosef and Hamza? Yosef and Hamza are Arab Muslim Israelis who were kidnapped by the terrorist organization Hamas on the 7th of October and still held hostages over 415 days. This is the reality. And if you think, and look at this person here, booing the Arab Muslims. So do you understand the reality, huh? There is a person here that booing Arab Muslims being held hostage by the terrorist organization Hamas. This is absolutely unbelievable. And this is my last comment, because I know that I've been here because of this interruptings. Now, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, just to let you know, if anybody, because I've heard here someone saying collaborator, I really don't want you. I don't want you. I've heard that someone called me here collaborator. I really urge you not to insult Nico Pellet, please. That's one. And second, to refer to the genocide act that you're talking about. There's a reason why all of you, or the majority of you, talking about 40,000. Ask yourself one question. Why you never differentiate between combatants and civilians? Why are you always bringing 40,000? Once you start realizing that the IDF managed to eliminate more than 10,000 terrorists, you will understand what's something called the ratio in war, unfortunately, that Hamas started, whether you like it or you don't like it. I know. No, they're booing me and I can't finish. I want to finish.
Order.
I want to finish.
Order. Could I ask the speaker to conclude?
I really want to finish. Guys, I really want to finish. Keep booing me. It's going to keep going. Go. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or not, what is happening in Gaza today, what is happening in the war that you it means Hamas and their supporters, started, and now they're crying, it's only because of the simple fact that you are losing. You're losing the Lebanese, you're losing the Arab world, you're losing every single thing that you thought that you can win. And you know why you're losing? I'm done.
He has been
And
very
you know-
generous with his time. I asked you to respect the rules of the House.
I'm fine. I'm just four less words. You know what you're losing because you thought you could destroy Israel, but Israel is here to stay.